Today, the DJI FPV drone and 5 things you didn't know, coming up right after this. Hey guys, Felix here with Quadcopterguide, and on this channel I help you get the most out of your drones and other camera gear. Exciting times are upon us. The DJI FPV drone is finally here, and literally UPS just rang the doorbell. This is my second take recording this because the first one failed. And yeah, the excitement is huge. So it turns out that my previous rumors and leaks videos were once again spot on. So if you're interested in DJI rumors and leaks, and maybe you're interested in the Mavic 3 or the Mavic 3 Pro, which I expect to come out this year still. Now, rumors and leaks happen very quickly, and once they start, it just gets quicker and faster from there. So if you want to be in the know and you're curious about the next drones coming, then I do encourage you to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you are notified. All right, let's talk about these 5 things you didn't know about the DJI FPV drone. Now, some of these things might come across as a little bit nitpicky or negative, but I wanted to paint an accurate picture of this drone and its features in case you're on the fence. Should I buy this thing? Should I not? I already bought it. I'm just looking and clicking through videos, whatever the case may be. All right, so number 1 of the things you might not know about this thing, there's a couple different ways to transmit the signal from the drone to your goggles. If you're new to FPV, for the DJI system, there's a low latency mode and a high quality mode. Now, low latency mode is the mode where the time it takes from the camera on the drone to be captured and sent to the goggles and displayed on the screen. That is called latency. So in low latency mode on the goggles, this happens in the quickest amount of time possible. So if you're flying through objects or you need very quick feedback in terms of what you're doing, what you're flying, then you'd want to try low latency mode. The high quality mode, on the other hand, gives you a higher quality image in your goggles. Now, since our bandwidth is limited, 15 megabits per second of the transmission signal from the drone to the goggles, how they do that is they increase the latency just a little bit to give you that higher quality image. Now, in low latency mode, as of the current firmware on the DJI FPV drone, you cannot record in 4K 60 frames per second. That's what I thought as well. So I'm not sure why that restriction is right now. I expect that to be changed. Maybe they're still working on getting some bugs or kinks out of the firmware in that respect. I don't know. But that's an interesting point that I noticed and saw. So there it is. What do you think about that? Do let me know down below. So you might have seen some of the reviews out there and you notice the flight footage looks pretty good, but the propellers are in the shot. You see the red edges of the propellers or the black part of the propellers in the shot. So when you're seeing video, you see that in there. Now there's a couple things you can do to help that. One of them is you can turn on EIS, or electronic image stabilization. This is the same or similar technology compared to what is in the Osmo Action Cam from DJI, and it just takes the image and stabilizes it. Well, to do that, it has to crop in a little bit, roughly around 10%, what I saw, and so that helps reduce getting these props in the shots. I'm going to do some extensive testing on this, so if you're interested in that, then make sure you stay tuned to the channel. Now, EIS, of course, has to crop in, because if it didn't, it would kind of smooth out your image, and every time it would kind of move the image, you would just get black filled in, and that looks kind of silly. Nobody wants that. So that's why EIS has to crop in. All right, so number 3 of the things you might not know about the DJI FPV drone and its system has to do with the goggles. Now, these goggles are version 1, but they physically look exactly the same as the version 2s, and this next point is the same on both. What you see in the goggle is, of course, what the drone sees, and the drone, if you recall, it records in a 16:9 aspect ratio. It's kind of a horizontal rectangle like this, the same kind of resolution your TV has at home. At the movie theater, it's a little bit more squished. It's 2.35 to 1, different kind of wide angle aspect ratios. Well, there's also 4:3, and that's more taller, not really a square, but just a little bit taller. Yeah. Now, the goggles can show you 16:9 or 4:3, and you might say, hey Felix, why would I not want 16:9? That's exactly what I'm recording, and it gives me a nice widescreen view. I like widescreen. That's the whole point, isn't it? Haha. Now, until just recently, my drones have had a fixed camera angle. So if the drone is flying like this, I want it to be able to see out front. So the angle was anywhere from 15 to 35 degrees. Now, when you are flying around like that, 16:9 is cool and all, but when you get close to objects or you want to land, you didn't really see where you were aiming because the tilt angle, you're coming into land, you saw too high. Now 4x3 solves this. 4x3 gives you additional vertical resolution to the top and the bottom, and the camera, the sensor can show you that, so that's why you're able to see that. It doesn't, just take the information out of thin air. But I would encourage you to try 4x3. If you're flying close to objects or when it's time to come into land, you can see a lot more. Now, of course, the DJI FPV drone, you can move the gimbal or it moves for you automatically depending on what you have it set up as, but just give 4x3 a try. Now, when you have 4x3 in the goggles, you don't know exactly what you're recording. At least on the version 1 of the goggles, you can turn on an overlay for 16:9. This is something else I'm going to test in depth and let you guys know. This is it, 4x3. Did you know about that? Anyway, try it out. Now, point number 4 that you might not know, you might have known this one, but one of the coolest features of the DJI FPV drone is that emergency brake. That pause button on the remote, the oh crap button. I don't know if you saw it in some of these reviews. I'll show you guys this in detail as well. But you hit that button and the drone just stops in mid-air. It's crazy. Let's say that this is the DJI FPV drone, my iPhone. You're flying along, you hit the button, and this thing will almost, depending on the speed, will almost just like fly like this and go full throttle, just like that. And it stops, literally, it looks like it stops on a dime. It is pretty wild. So if you're new to FPV or you are just wanting to get into FPV and you said, man, I don't know, what happens if I get in trouble? What if I lose orientation? What if I freak out? I don't know how close I am to an object. This button, the pause button, the emergency button, whatever it's called, it's going to save your bacon. That is one of the top features of the DJI FPV drone. All right, so number 5 of the things you might not know about the DJI FPV drone has once again to do with the goggles. Now in this case, once again, these are the version 1 of the goggles, and you can see I have some aftermarket antennas on here. Shout out to TrueRC. Hugo from TrueRC is a very cool guy. He's very involved in the FPV scene, and that's why his products or his company's products are some of the best. But anyhow, aftermarket antennas, why would you want them? You say, hey, the DJI FPV drone comes with antennas, why would you want to upgrade them? Well, some people, some nerds among us, we are in the search of the ultimate best. Maybe you have a project where you have to cut your signal through a lot of interference. Maybe you want to get just that much more range, I guess, if that's your thing, or you just want to have the most solid signal. Maybe you're flying in an abandoned building and you notice that at a certain spot the signal gets digitally fuzzy and you wish you could just fly through there and still have signal. Whatever the use case may be, aftermarket antennas can help you in this respect. Now what you need to know is that the version 1 of the goggles, these here, operated at only 5.8 gigahertz. The version 2 of the goggles and the FPV drone can also operate on 2.4 gigahertz. Now, I won't dive into too much of detail, but 5.8 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz are two different spectrums that the DJI camera drones have used for years, and the technology can switch between the two depending on your interference level of where you're flying, etc., to give you the best performance. Now, 2.4 gigahertz signal travels further than 5.8, just based on physics and wavelength and all that. But the version 1 or antennas for the original DJI FPV goggles were of course only designed for 5.8 gigahertz because that's the spectrum that this goggle system and the version 1 of the Air unit and Vista, etc. works on. So if you're in the market of antennas or you want to improve the range even more, or you just want to get rid of the tall DJI antennas like I did with these TrueRC Singularity antennas, then just stay put, wait for them to bring out the proper antennas for the version 2 of the goggles, because using the old ones or the current ones will actually limit range in 2.4 gigahertz. And that makes sense because these are designed for 5.8. Now, if one of those things you might have known already, then I'll give you a bonus. Number 6 of the things you might not know about the DJI FPV drone or the system in itself is that on your iOS device, at least, you can download an app called the DJI Virtual Flight app. Now, some of you guys that were in the launch stream on this channel have seen that before. I showed a couple clips of it, and I'll overlay some of that footage here. But with this app, you can download it for free if you have an iOS device. I am not sure of the Android version when it's coming, if it's coming. I just don't have that official information just yet. But if you have access to an iOS device somehow, you can try flying the DJI FPV drone yourself, even without the hardware. Now, this simulator is what you use if you have the hardware to try out the drone with the goggles and the remote, and it's totally a perfect simulation for you to practice trying new moves, switching from normal mode to sport mode, and whenever the time comes to jump into that full manual mode, which gets you those exciting flights, but at a higher risk. So before you do any of that, you want to get comfortable in the simulator. And this brings up a good point. Are you new to FPV? Is this going to be your first FPV drone? Then I do invite you to check out this link down below or here on the screen. Go to this page, sign up to that. It's an email list, and on there I will let you know when there's further training or just different resources for you if you are getting into this DJI FPV drone. Maybe it's your first FPV drone, you're kind of worried about it, you want to have a little bit more information or help with it, then I encourage you to go to that link and sign up, and I will keep you in the loop when that is available. All right, so this app, it has the option to use on-screen joysticks, so you kind of use your thumbs like this to fly around. It is a little tricky. You can see my failed attempts or my attempts here. It is a little tricky. You have to get used to it. You can probably adjust the sensitivity a little bit in the app. I didn't dive too deep into the settings. But if you're just curious of how this thing performs, what it's like to go from normal to sport mode to full manual mode, how it reacts, if you're not used to FPV, maybe you're flying a Mavic, a Phantom, a Spark, whatever it might be, it's an interesting kind of a way for you to check out the system without having to spend any money. Check it out. I linked that down below as well. All right, so now it's your turn. What did you think of the DJI FPV drone? 5 things you didn't know, or I guess it'd be 6 things you didn't know. Let me know down below if any of those were new to you. Is there something else that is interesting that you haven't seen covered before that you might say, hey, that would make another good point? Maybe I'll do a follow-up video to this if a lot of those come together, or if I learn many more new things. Anyhow, stay tuned to the channel for a lot more coverage on the DJI FPV drone, and I hope you're doing well. Can't wait to get into a great conversation with you guys down below. I can't wait to see you in the next one. All right, bye.